It starts with Melissa, the host, talking to Rawiri about, how Labour is backpedaling. And the thing that Rawiri does is he explains why they're backpedaling. And it sounds like he's not that impressed with the backpedaling, but then he puts out the reason why he thinks they have to backpedal. And we'll let it play through from there and then pick up on it. Again, Chewy, shout out if you want to jump in. I will jump in.
I just want to say one thing before you hit play.
Go.
Rawiri's impeccable drip.
Yeah. Is the business, eh?
Yeah. He is the business.
Here we go.
Chris Hipkins is now the driver of this Labour vehicle, and he's got it going very, very fast in reverse. And so he has to come to the pressure of the likes of National and ACT, who have emboldened that type of narrative out there in the public, social media, around words like co-governance, words like policies around three waters, and all those types of things. And so, I'm not seeing a difference in regards to where the current policy settings are for Labour, even in the environmental space, with the Greens not being able to put too much pressure on Labour in terms of the biofuel space. It just seems like they're all mixed up in the one puna, which is concerning to me.
So to be clear, because the audio is not 100%, the pressure and the rhetoric, and we're not finished with that word rhetoric yet, that National and Labour has caused, and I think about groups like Groundswell, they're out there, he hasn't used the word dis or misinformation, but the dis or misinformation out there has caused Labour to need to back down. Right now, obviously it sounds like he's not happy that they've backed down, but that's where he's laying that at the feet of why Labour has to do a U-turn, because based on all the bullshit that's out there. Would that be a fair summary of what we've heard so far, Chewy?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right, now we'll keep going because we're going to get to a main point.
Is that if we can succumb to the kind of racist rhetoric that's coming through some of the social media platforms and the pressure from the public who think like that and who are emboldened when political parties start to push that type of rhetoric, fear-mongering rhetoric, that puts more, I think, public pressure on those Māori leaders who are pushing to get a more equal and equitable balance when it comes to decision making here in Aotearoa.
Rawiri, we understand actually that David Seymour is on the line now and can now hear our discussion. When you're talking about political leaders and racist rhetoric, are you speaking about what David Seymour has said on co-governance?
Oh, absolutely. And so the ACT and National Party have both been pushing a fear-mongering campaign against co-governance, which actually puts a lot more pressure on.
Taihua there, Rawiri, why don't you tell us
one moment, David.
Excuse me.
If we can just let David respond, Rawiri.
Very serious accusation to make.
Rawiri, if we can just let David respond and I'll come back to you. David?
What? Thank you. Rawiri, to say that somebody is racist is a very, very serious accusation to make. What specifically?
I said you're pushing racist rhetoric.
Well, thank you. Now, if you could stop interrupting, what specifically is it that we have said that you think is racist rhetoric?
Oh, look, I'm not going to get into the nits of that, David. You can work that out. But what's happening is this.
So this is where Rawiri has missed the boat, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because we'll get to this, but I just wanted to pause. This is where Rawiri has missed the boat. And unfortunately, what's happened here, and why we're here, whānau, is to help you share some stuff to help expand on what's been said. That's what we're doing right now. Because Rawiri missed the boat here because he could have shut down this conversation and put a point out on national television to, it's TV3, dozens of people, as to what that rhetoric actually was. He didn't do it. Now, whether he chose not to do it or whether he was put on the spot and couldn't find it immediately, I don't know. But he's missed an opportunity here. And of course, what's going to come from this, from people who don't see what we're doing, is, you see, buzzwords, nothing to back it up. So this is unfortunate, but we will get to what the truth behind it is as we go through.
That those of us that are out there trying to push for a more equal, equitable, fair, and just society based on Te Tiriti o Waitangi have had to do this because there is a big pushback.
But
And so
Rawati,
we're not talking about co-government.
in
We're
the
talking about
announcements
co-governance, being able to
yesterday,
have equal
can I
pay
just say that in the announcements yesterday, I mean, you speak about national enact, but actually it's this Labor government who have signalled that actually co-governance appears to be getting
But
ditched. They haven't actually said that,
Melissa?
but they have said that any change to the structure of Three Waters will include a change to governance structure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that has come from the pressure of those who are pushing that type of rhetoric. And so, you know,
So the racist rhetoric around things like co-governance is the reason that Labor is making that decision. Now, from an ideological point of view, I think it's weak of Labor and it annoys me. From a pragmatic point of view, if you want Labor to be the next government, that's sort of the game, which is unfortunate. Now, this is an important part. I'm just going to go back a few seconds so we don't clip the start of it, because this is where Mr. Seymour jumps in and asks a direct question, which we're going to respond to.
And so, you know,
what type of
vehicle going on
exactly?
Hang on, David. I gave you an opportunity to speak. Be quiet, please. Is that we've got a government now retracting because of the pressure that the opposition have put on them and have created in the communities that follow them.
David, I do want to bring you back in on this because we missed out on talking to you at the beginning. Broadly, I mean, feel free to respond to Rawati, but also broadly, your reaction to the culls in general and whether this is going to have an impact on cost of living pressures.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think what we just heard is very, very interesting. You've got somebody who says they're committed to racial equality, who makes wild accusations all the time, and you say, well, what exactly have we said? What exactly have we done? And he says, oh, I couldn't get into the nitty-gritty, you work it out. And I think that was a very telling exchange, and I think people should think very carefully about Rawati Waititi and what he's really up to.
So, pretty big, heavy call at the end there. Now, from a game of politics, Seymour kind of has a point because he didn't respond well to that question. Now, I can see Jonty, and I see you've started. You can put it up as you want because I can respond to that. Have said they've blindsided him. They didn't. I didn't play the full interview. They were supposed to be on together in studio, and David Seymour got stuck in traffic. So he wasn't blindsided. He may not have known he was absolutely coming up, but they were due to be on together at the same time, and Seymour was stuck in traffic. So that was already prearranged, just so everybody knows. However, one of the best things to come from this, right? And if you're someone like me, like Chewy, who is left-leaning or a left-wing lunatic, what David Seymour has just done is severed any small possibility there ever was for Te Pāti Māori to get into bed with an ACT national coalition.
Yeah.
That, I mean, I've been saying, you never know, John Key, he did it and was supplying confidence and, but that conversation has severed any possibility of that ever potentially happening. So from a left point of view, thank you, David Seymour.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Chewy?
Yeah, I just getting back to the first time that I watched that clip where Rawati didn't want to get into the nitty-gritty, 100% he should have hit them with examples. He knows what they are. I just don't think he had thought to prepare it. Maybe, but this is the game. He needs to be prepared. Yeah. This is the game. Yes,
and so
100%.
Yeah,
because I think if he had it there, he would have had Seymour on the ropes.
Yeah, well, so we've said this to David Seymour and directly to his face. So let's just go through now, so you can understand. And please don't put it out like I'm being patronizing to you. You're all very smart people. You must be if you're watching this, because no morons in this thing.
And also very good looking.
And very good looking. Very good looking.
Very especially well put together.
Especially if you've got beards. So we just want to spell this out one more time, because it is absolutely accurate that David Seymour uses racist rhetoric. However, this is the game, right? This was the question that David Seymour asked Rawati. It's a quote. It's word for word. It's what he said. Mm-hmm. What specifically is it that we have said that you think is racist rhetoric? Now, this is a very clever tool. Whether he knows it's clever or not, let's not give him too much credit. Is specifically means point to the racist thing I have said. Specifically, what is it? That is sometimes difficult to do, but it doesn't mean you don't have racist rhetoric. So I don't think you're going to find David Seymour using the N-word or talking about, useless Maoris or whatever like that. I don't think that's going to happen for a specific issue, right? However, this is the areas within the Human Rights Commission that it's illegal to be discriminated based on, right? These are the areas. This is from the Human Rights Commission website. You cannot be discriminated on because of your age, sex, gender, or sexual orientation, right? It's illegal to be discriminated against based on that. Your marital or relationship status. It's illegal to be discriminated against based on that. It's illegal to be discriminated based on having a family or not. It's illegal to be discriminated against about being in a relationship or related to a certain person because of your religious or ethical beliefs, because of your color, your race, Mr. Seymour, ethnicity or country of origin. It's illegal to be discriminated against based on having any kind of disability, impairment, or illness. It's illegal to be discriminated against because of your political opinions. And it's illegal to be discriminated on based on your employment status. Now, if you're watching, you'll see what I've written in red there, which is except when you can. Now, what that means is there's a thing in the law which is legal discrimination. So let's have a look at some of these. Chewy, you can think out some of these and throw it out there. It's illegal to be discriminated on based on age, unless you want to vote at 16, unless you want to drink at 15, unless you want to get a pension and you're younger than 65. All of those things you're allowed to be discriminated against. It's illegal to be discriminated on based on having a family or not. But Chewy, you can't get working for families.
No.
That's money from the government. You're being discriminated against based on not having children that you know of. Whereas I, having children that I know of, I'm able to get it. You are being discriminated against. But you know what? It's legal discrimination. And you can go through all of these, and let's get to the fucking religious discrimination. Still basically in law, you can discriminate against women if you're in the Catholic Church by saying you can't be a woman and be a priest. That's discrimination based on sex, but it's legal because you are allowed to discriminate against it. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It's very, very clear, right? David Seymour and his kind are guilty of using racist rhetoric, not because they are talking about equality when it comes to race. It's because they are only interested in equality under the law when it comes to race. David Seymour doesn't want to make it equality under the law when it comes to fucking age, because then 15-year-olds would get the vote. David Seymour doesn't want to make it equal and equality under the law when it comes to religion, or else you'd have male nuns in the Catholic Church. He doesn't want to level the playing field for any other area of discrimination. He only wants to level the playing field as he sees it when it comes to race, which is why it's racist rhetoric. All the other protected classes, they're fine with legal discrimination or special privileges because people like David Seymour will say they think there's a good reason why you shouldn't be able to vote at 15. So what they're actually saying is there is not a good reason for legal discrimination based on race. That's the point they're trying to make, which they're not making, right? They're not making that point. At the very least, that would then be an honest debate. But if you're going to have that debate, you would then need to include Māori as a part of it, not dictate to them from on high what is the answer. So, yes, David Seymour absolutely uses racist rhetoric, not because he wants to see equality for everyone based on race, but because he only wants to see equality based on race. And so what he's saying is, let's all be equal. Let's not let those brown folk have special privileges, but those disabled folk, they can have special privileges. Those elderly folk, they can have special privileges. That religious group, they can have special privileges. That's all discrimination. He's not after any of that. He's only trying to flatten what he describes as the curve based on race. David Seymour, that is racist rhetoric.
Yep, absolutely. Like my issue with this is, he's always talking about equality and special privileges for special groups, and we shouldn't have all that. We should all be equal New Zealanders under the law. And nominally, yeah, that stuff that, of course, you would go, yes, we want equality. But my issue with him and with his party, with where he's trying to draw a line, is where is his starting position that we were all equal?
Yeah, very much.
At what point is it? Because in my mind, that should be the treaty. That's the starting point. That's
you mean the founding document, Joey? The founding document.
It's a strange place to start.
There's a clue in that word, isn't there? The founding document. There's a clue there somewhere.
So I mean, here's the thing, right? We signed a document, and then as soon as that was all done, Europeans started heavily like putting their finger on the scale and bringing over their institutions and their laws from Europe. And at that point, Māori were on the back foot. They were outnumbered. At the point that they were outnumbered, they could never change it back.
Yeah.
There's 120 plus years of having these European structures come in. We took land off them. We imprisoned them. We took their language away from them. And when I say we, let's just say European
settlers, the people who made the agreement,
settlers and governments and structures.
And it's the crown. I mean, yes, it was the crown, but then when we got more independence, the government of New Zealand took on responsibility for that. So it's the government.
And all of that was legal and fine. And then at some point in the late 70s, early 80s, we started to look at redressing. Māori started to get more upfront and more organised, and started to protest and push and point out. And the Treaty of Waitangi started to address all of these things. And at this point, that little redress in the scales, people started to get real uncomfortable. When you're benefiting from the dominant structure, and that structure changes, that is frightening. Oh, my farm's on stolen land, or it's a lease from the crown, or I get all of these advantages. I get these job opportunities, and now there's a chance that it's not, and I has to start considering things that aren't my culture. Things like I saw a comment on Twitter today from a nurse. Now he's a guy that immigrated over from England quite a few years ago, and someone came up to him and says, "Oh, you must be furious with all of these overseas nurses coming in and taking the jobs." He's like, "Well, actually, I'm a nurse from overseas." I don't mean you. You're a Kiwi. Yeah. And at that point, like hearing that phrase, ordinary everyday Kiwis, ordinary everyday Kiwis, they mean white New Zealanders. Yeah. I'm an ordinary everyday Kiwi. My opinion counts more, and it's that, you don't want to sort of go, well, I'm not part of that, but you are part of the structure, and we have to push back on that as much as possible. I will be furious if we put Three Waters through without Māori co-governance.
Well, it's already through. They've passed the law.
Yeah, but there's criticisms changing, they're thinking of changing the governance structure and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, when people are pushing back on that, because we've had 100 years of European dominance over our laws and how we do things, and that's got us to this point, and a lot of it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked, and there's no harm in trying something else and going back and going, hey, are we a partnership or not?
I you know me, I like analogies, make it simple. I used to talk to people on Talkback who would phone up and talk about things like settlements and the treaty and all that kind of stuff. And there's two things I'd always say to them. The first is, like, if you have a contract between two parties, one of the parties can't just cancel the contract. So you need both parties to agree to either cancel it or continue on. And what you're getting at the moment is one party saying, let's cancel it. The other thing is, I always used to say to people, where are you from? And they'd say things like, oh, I'm from, ancestors from Scotland. Oh, cool, great, Scotland. And what would you do, for example, if in World War II, you know, the UK government took 100 acres of your grandfather's land for defense purposes and then never returned it. And if they had it, you'd be worth $10 million a day. Would you want some kind of redress for that? And the liars would say no. And I just go, don't bullshit. You know, come on, let's not bullshit. Let's go. You know, if it was you and it was in your situation, of course you'd want some kind of redress. What's the difference? Well, you know, time. It's like, well, you know, 3 generations, we're back into the 1800s. It's not that difficult, really.
This is coming from the party of property rights. You know, you know, if you want to go back to that, okay, let's take it back to the discussion of property rights. Let's talk about the treaty, because the whole thing was about property rights. You know, they haven't had the protections under the law that they were supposed to have had.
Correct. And look, that's all it is. I mean, for the party of business to not understand how a contract works, you kind of really got to understand. That's why, like we always say, Christopher Luxon is not a businessman; he's a board member. You know, what businesses have he ever started? What businesses has he ever taken up? What budget has he ever had to worry about, other than let's cut people to you know, let the CEO still earn more money? He's not a businessman.